Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee, and I'm here with the second video for Book 2 of the Raw Contact Teachings of the Law of One. The first video was a recap and an intro to what we're even doing here. And this video is going to be actually starting the book with the first session of this volume, which is session 57. First volume was 1 through 56. This is the start of volume 2, session 57. All right. So this takes place on June 12th, 1981. I'm going to be born in 2 months and 10 days. So I'm in utero at this point. So Ra always starts the communication with, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator we communicate now. And that's the only time I'm going to read that sentence for any of these sessions for volume 2. You heard it once. Ross says it every single time when they start a new session. That's what happens. Okay. All right. So if you've watched volume 1 or you've read this yourself, you know that Carla, which is the channeler, Ra calls the instrument, and Dawn, who's the questioner, ends up calling her the instrument as well, has had a lot of physical problems. She's kind of like physically weak when it comes to health in some aspects. So in the last book, which this was some of the stuff that got cut out from the original time that it got published, she had taken some acid from somebody and it turns out the person who gave it to her through whatever channels and means I don't even really understand or know, was one of the bad guys, one of the negative polarized ET people that Ra refers to as the Orion group. And so it was somebody from the Orion group gave Carla some bad acid so that it would make her more vulnerable and less likely to do this work, this channeling work. So she's kind of on the flip side of the bad acid that she took, but she's still having a lot of trouble physically. And as you're going to find out, she's having trouble with her joints, like wrists and like kind of arthritis type of things. But that's going to come up in a bunch of these first sessions. So the first thing that Dawn asks is, can you give me an indication of the instrument's condition? Remember, the instrument, whenever the instrument is referred to, that is Carla. Carla is the channeler. Carla is the instrument. And just so you guys are aware, because some of you that watch this might be familiar with my channeling that I do, and Carla's doing hers completely different. She's going all the way out of her body. She does not have any memory of what is happening at all during the sessions. She doesn't know what was talked about or anything. Where for me, when I do mine, I am like partially aware. Sometimes I'm fully aware, but most of the time I'm partially aware. Like I've stepped away, but I'm not all the way gone. And I'm partially aware of what's happening, even if I'm experiencing a little bit different of what is coming through. But for Carla, that's not the case. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know what's happening at all. The voice is just speaking through her, and she's not consciously aware of it, just to kind of differentiate between the two different channelings there. Okay, this is Ra's answer. Remember, Ra always answers with, I am Ra, before the beginning of every question. I'm not going to read them every time. We're going to skip over that. We know it's Ra. Okay? We know. That's what we're reading here. So we don't need to say it every time. The instrument is under a most severe psychic attack. The instrument is bearing up well due to the replenished vital energies and a distortion towards a sense of proportion, which your peoples call a sense of humor. So humor, replenishing her vital energies, is getting her through a psychic attack. Like they're going after her because she's channeling this information, and certain entities don't want this information to be told. The attack is potentially disruptive to this contact for a brief period of your space time. Don always wants to know, and he will ask it almost every single session. Sometimes he'll ask it at the beginning, and sometimes he'll ask it at the end. He always asks it at the end. Let's rephrase that. Don always asks at the end, but some of these sessions where Carla's having a an especially hard time, Don will ask at the beginning as well. Is there anything in particular we can do in addition to what we're already doing to alleviate this attack? There's nothing you can do. The understanding of this mechanism might be of aid. So understanding what's happening might be of aid. So what's the mechanism? Don asks. Ra says, the Orion group, which remember are the bad guys, Orion group equals bad guys, cannot interfere directly, but only through pre-existing distortions of the mind-body-spirit complex. Mind-body-spirit complex is just a person. They get real complicated with how to describe the people because it's a mind and a body and a spirit, and Ra has to say it every time, but they're saying the person. Thus, in this case, the entity reached for a heavy object with one hand. That's Carla. Carla reached for a heavy object with one hand, and this miscalculated action caused a deformation or distortion of the skeletal muscular structure of one of this instrument's appendages. So basically, she reached for something heavy, and she wasn't thinking about how heavy it was going to be, and it caused some issue with her hand and wrist. Your aid might be helpful in supporting this instrument in the proper care of this distortion, which is equivalent to what you call your post-operative state when bones are not firmly knit. The instrument needs to be aware of care necessary to avoid such miscalculated actions, and your support in this state of awareness is noted and encouraged. For some reason, I wrote ankle, and I remember what the reason was. I was talking about my ankle. So Carla's wrist gets messed up, but I had an ankle sprain, a really, really, really bad ankle sprain that happened like 2 days before Halloween. And so I was thinking about my own ankle when they're explaining this. Is there anything? Don asks again. He's so concerned about Carla, and it's so sweet. It is, really. It's very sweet, but sometimes it gets to be a little much. Is there anything we can specifically do to alleviate the problem that's already existing? This information is harmless, thus we'll share it through, though it is transient, lacking the principle, but only offering a specific transient effect. So he's saying we can give you that information because it's not going to go against your free will, but it's a very fleeting thing, so but we'll give it to you anyway. The wrist area should be wrapped, as in the sprained configuration, as you call this distortion, and what you call a sling may be used on this distorted right side of the body complex for one diurnal period. Diurnal just means like a cycle of the day. At that time, symptoms, as you call these distortions, shall be reviewed and such repeated until the distortion is alleviated. So basically wrap it and sling it for a day and see how it feels. And then if it still is hurting, keep slinging it and wrapping it. The healing work to which each is apprentice may be used as described. It is not to be noted that a crystal is available. Oh no, it is to be noted that a crystal is available. What crystal is that? Don wants to know. The flawed but significant crystal which rests upon the digit of the instrument's right hand. So she has a ring on her finger. How do you use that crystal for this purpose? This is a large question. First, as a mind-body-spirit complex, balance and polarize the self connecting the inner light with the upward spiraling inpourings of the universal light. You got that? Okay. You have to connect your inner light with universal light. So they refer to the universal light and love of the universe and the source as this spiraling energy quite often, especially in this book more and more. So that's all he's saying there. Saying you got to balance yourself, polarize yourself, connect your inner light to the light of the universe. Okay. You have done exercises to regularize the process involved. Look to them for the preparation of the crystallized being. Now, the crystallized being is not necessarily talking about the actual crystal that they're referring to that Carla wears on her finger as a ring. Crystallized beings can also be your actual self. And it seems like that's something that we're supposed to be striving for, is for the energy of our souls and also our physical chakras to become crystallized. That's the kind of what we're striving for in the perfection of our energy. And there's other places where that comes up in the first book. I'm sure it comes up more in this book as well. Then take the crystal, which is actually the real crystal, and feel your polarized and potentiated, balanced energy channeled in green ray healing, which is your heart chakra, through your being, going into and activating the crystalline regularity of frozen light, which is in the crystal. So here we are talking about the crystallized energy that is the actual crystal. And it's referring to it as crystallized frozen light. Wow. Never thought about a crystal as being crystallized light. But for many kinds of crystals, you can totally see that, right? Like if you look at a clear quartz, it's like frickin' light frozen. It looks like ice, you know? So interesting. I thought that was very interesting. The crystal will respond with the charged light of the incarnative love and light energy and will begin to radiate in a specified fashion, beaming in required light vibrations, healing energy focused and intensified toward the magnetic field of the mind-body-spirit complex, which is to be healed. This entity requesting such healing will then open the armor of the overall violet-red ray protective vibratory shield. Violet being your crown, red being your root. Talking about it creating a shield over yourself. Okay. So the energy from the crystal is going to help do the healing. But only because there's energy coming through the heart chakra for the healing from the person whose body needs to be healed. Thus, the inner vibratory fields from center to center in mind, body, and spirit may be interrupted and adjusted momentarily, thus offering the one to be healed the opportunity to choose a less distorted inner complex of energy fields and vibratory relationships. So by interrupting the outer shield, opening up the heart chakra, channeling this love and light, having the crystal help you, then you can readjust your vibratory fields through your mind, body, and spirit to heal whatever needs to be healed. It's a little complicated, but also not somehow. Don asks, should the crystal be held in the right hand of the healer? Incorrect. There are two recommended configurations. The first, the chain about the neck to place the crystal in the physical position of the green ray energy center. So wearing it on her neck instead so that it's on near her heart chakra. Second, the chain hung from the right hand outstretched, wound about the hand in such a way that the crystal may be swung so as to affect sensitive adjustments. So using it like a pendulum over the body. We offer this information realizing that much practice is needed to efficiently use these energies of self. However, each has the capability of doing so, and this information is not information which, if followed accurately, can be deleterious, which means causing harm or damage. As you can see, I had to look that up. So they're giving them the information about how to heal with a crystal because basically, you can't screw it up. You can only get better at doing it. Good to know. Would an unflawed crystal be considerably more effective than the flawed one that we now have? Without attempting to deem the priorities you choose, we may note that the regularized or crystallized entity in this configuration is as critical as the perfection of the crystal used. So I think that they're saying that in order for it to be super really magically efficient, that yourself would need to be crystallized and the crystal would need to be perfect. But considering here on Earth, there's probably no such thing as either one of those things, you have to make do with what you have. Does the size of the crystal have a relationship to the effectiveness of the healing? In some applications concerning planetary healing, this is a consideration. So if you're trying to heal the whole planet, then yes. In working with an individual mind-body-spirit complex, the only requirement is that the crystal be in harmony with the crystallized being. So you need to be in harmony together with the crystal. There is perhaps a lower limit to the size of what you may call a faceted crystal, for light coming through this crystal needs to be spread the complete width of the spectrum of the one being healed. It may further be noted that water is a type of crystal which is efficacious also, although not as easy to hang from a chain in your density. I think Ra's making a joke there. Because he's saying that water is also a crystal, but you can't hang it from a chain. Okay. So the light coming through the crystal does need to be able to be spread across the width of the spectrum of the person being healed. So, from top to bottom, chakra to chakra, and probably a little bit further out to cover, the rest of it. Okay. So then Dawn asks, placing this end of the pencil sitting on the navel, would the point then represent the position where the crystal needs to hang for the proper green ray? Is this a correct position? We attempt your measurements. From 2 to 5.4 centimeters toward your heart is optimal. So Dawn's just trying to figure out where exactly to put the crystal on Carla. But considering we can't see exactly where that is, it's not really going to help us any. So we're going to skip the rest of that part. How does the healing that you told us about relate to the healing done in the King's Chamber and the Giza Pyramid? So there's like a whole bunch of questions Dawn asks in the first book about the pyramid, the Great Pyramid. Ra says that they built that pyramid, that they built it. And it's as a place. They built it as a place to heal and also to be initiated into being basically like an acolyte to the Law of One teachings so that people could learn how to heal others as well. All right, so here's the answer to Don's question. There are two advantages to doing this working in such a configuration of shapes and dimensions. Firstly, the disruption or interruption of the violet-red armoring or protective shell is automatic. So being inside of the king's chamber in the pyramid automatically disrupts that shell that we were talking about. In the second place, the light is configured by the very placement of this position and the 7 distinct color or energy vibratory rates, thus allowing the energy through the crystallized being focused with the crystal to manipulate with great ease the undisturbed and, shall we say, carefully delineated palette of energies or colors, both in space-time and time-space. Basically, what that incredibly difficult paragraph says is that the light that comes through the pyramid is already configured to cover all of the chakras, which is the colors and the energy centers. Thus, the unarmored being may be adjusted rapidly instead of having to do it slowly. This is desirable in some cases, especially when the armoring is the largest moiety of the possibility of continued function of body complex activity in this density. So they're saying that in this context, moiety can be defined as part or portion. The largest part or portion of the possibility of continued function of the body complex activity in this density. Density is us, third density. Right now we're moving to fourth density, but it's still third density. Think of the word density as dimensions. Dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension, but they use the word density. The trauma of the interruption of this armoring vibration is then seen to be lessened. So it can be quicker. It covers the whole gamut of all of the energy centers and chakras and light and colors. And it can happen faster with less interruption of our protective energy shield. We take this opportunity to pursue our honor duty as some of those creating the pyramid shape to note that it is in no way necessary to use this shape in order to achieve healings. Very important. They built this gigantic frickin' pyramid to heal people and to have people learn how to heal other people. But now they're saying that it's not necessary. The pyramid is just one way of doing the healing, but not the only way. Furthermore, as we have said, the powerful effect of the pyramid with its mandatory disruption of the armoring is used without the crystallized being, used with the wrong intention or in the wrong configuration can result in further distortions of entities which are perhaps the equal of some of your chemicals which cause disruption in the energy fields in like manner. So the pyramid is so powerful, though, that if someone does it incorrectly, that it can be detrimental and cause a lot of problems, much like chemicals. Certain chemicals that we have now. Don then asks, is there currently any use of the pyramid shape at all that is beneficial? This is in the affirmative if carefully used. So yes, there are ways to still use the pyramid, but you have to do it carefully. The pyramid may be used for the improvement of the meditative state as long as the shape is such that the entity in the Queen's Chamber position or entities are in balanced configuration about this central point. The small pyramid shape placed beneath a portion of the body complex may energize the body complex. This should be done for brief periods only, not to exceed 30 minutes of your time. The use of the pyramid to balance planetary energies still functions to a slight extent, but due to the Earth changes, the pyramids are no longer aligned properly for this work. So they're saying that the Giza pyramid, the big pyramid, if used properly, can still be used for healing in the Queen's Chamber. You can also use small pyramids placed under your head, which later they actually do say your head. Here it says under your body complex, under your body, for no more than 30 minutes at a time, which I have these very wonderful pyramid-shaped crystals configurations. I've got 2 of them that I got sent from one of my Twitch people. And I've been wondering about using them in the way that they explain it in this book. There's more ways, there's more to it. There's more that Dawn asks in later sessions. But basically there's energy. Any pyramid shape, there's energy spiraling through the actual shape itself. And the energy that spirals through the shape and comes out of the top is beneficial to our energy, but not for like, you have to do it for short periods of time. I'll have to try and get back to you. And then it said that the pyramid itself, the big pyramid, was also there to help balance our planetary energies. But since the Earth has changed so much since then, that it doesn't work as well as it did when it was first made. What is the aid or the mechanism of the aid received from meditation for an entity who would be positioned in the so-called Queen's Chamber? Consider the polarity of mind-body-spirit complexes. The inner light is that which is your heart of being. Its strength equals your strength of will to seek the light. The position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the in-streaming light upward, spiraling from the south magnetic pole of being. Thus, this is the place of the initiate. Oh, that's the word they use, not acolyte. Initiate. I was trying to remember what it was. There it is. For many extraneous items or distortions will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking, so that it may become one with the centralized and purified incoming light. So what the hell is Ross saying there? Okay. So your inner light, which is your heart of your being, its strength equals your strength of will to seek the light. So how much are you, how connected are you to the light of the universe, the light of source? How much are you seeking it? How much do you understand it? How much connection do you feel to the light of what Ra would call the one infinite creator? Is going to be the strength of your will. It equals the strength of your will to also heal. That's pretty much what it's talking about. But then it also says at the end that there's an upward spiraling. Remember, I keep referring to the spiraling of light that comes from the bottom of us toward the top. So from our feet touching the earth, spiraling up, 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 around and around till it comes out the top. Okay. And then it says, the Queen's Chamber is the place for the initiate to get rid of a lot of distortions. They'll leave as the distortions will leave the entity as the seeking to get to the one infinite creator increases. Then Dawn asks, then if a pyramid shape is used, it would seem to me that it would be necessary to make it large enough so the Queen's Chamber's position would be far enough from the King's Chamber position so that you could use the energy position and not be harmed by the energy position of the King's Chamber position or any position farther from the Queen's Chamber. Is this correct? Oh my God. Okay, so Ra already has given a bunch of information about where the king's chamber is and where the queen's chamber is. And I'm trying to remember if they have a diagram of it in here, or if we need to look it up. Let's take a look at the a diagram of the chambers here. So here's the king's chamber. Notice that there's stuff happening above it, and then you've got all these chambers, of which, you know, they claim just to be air shafts, but I think most people know that there's more to it than just air being able to flow through. And then here's the queen's chamber. So it's not directly underneath, and it's over it's over a little bit. In the first book, Dawn actually goes through and mathematically figures out exactly where the queen's chamber and the king's chamber are in relation to each other and in relation to the whole pyramid itself. And he knows all of the actual measurements. And then he's so particular and smart that he figures out the ratios of like where they are in relationship to each other and all of this stuff. So Don has got it figured out. He knows that he knows exactly where everything is. So I was going to spend some time going back and looking at the information of what it says in the first book about the Queen's Chamber, but just know, you saw the diagram of where they are. We don't need to go into all of the math again. If you're interested in that, it's somewhere in the first volume. Okay. Here's Ra's answer. In this application of a pyramid shape may be smaller if the apex angle is less, thus not allowing the formation of the king's chamber position. Also, efficacious for this application are the following shapes: the silo, the cone, the dome, and the teepee. So basically, Ra's saying that other shapes are just as good for healing. It doesn't have to be a pyramid, and you don't even need to have the king's chamber. If the angle is too small, where there is no king's chamber allowed, it'll still work. So then Dawn asks, do these shapes that you mentioned have any of the effect of the king's chamber at all, or do they have only the queen chamber effect? These shapes have the queen's chamber effect. It is to be noted that a strongly crystallized entity is, in effect, a portable king's chamber position. So a person who has managed to get themselves crystallized, and their energy centers are crystallized, and they've moved up the rank enough to get there, is doing what the king's chamber does in the giant pyramid. What? Okay. Then you're saying that there is absolutely no need, use, or good in having the king's chamber effect at this time in our planetary evolution. If those who desired to be healers were of a crystallized nature and were all supplicants to those wishing less distortion, the pyramid would be, as always, a carefully designed set of parameters to distribute light and its energy as to aid in healing catalyst. There you go. That one's pretty straightforward. The crystallized energy, the crystallized person, wishing less distortions. And the pyramid is what it always was. Parameters to distribute light and the light's energy to heal. However, we found that your peoples are not distorted toward the desire for purity. Does anybody else find that funny? I think it's funny. However, we found that your peoples are not distorted towards the desire for purity to a great enough extent to be given this powerful and potentially dangerous gift. We therefore would suggest it not be used for healing in the traditional King's Chamber configuration, which we naively gave your peoples, only to see its use grossly distorted and our teachings lost. Oh, people, what did we do? Why are we like this? Why? They just wanted to help us. They wanted to teach us. And we said, nope, we know what we're talking about. We don't give a shit about your King's Chamber. This is ours now. We're going to do with it what we want. And then we screwed it all up. And now the poor Raw Collective is trying to fix the shit for the last God knows how many thousands of years. Oh, goodness gracious. We are not distorted toward the desire for purity. We aren't. And we don't know how to listen. And we definitely don't know how to follow directions. As a teacher, a public school teacher for 8 years, I saw it on all spectrums of all ages of people, not just children. Adults don't know how to follow directions either. Part of our human DNA can't follow directions. Next question. What would be an appropriate apex angle for a TP shape? TP. This is at your discretion. The principle of circular, rounded, or peaked shapes is that the center acts as an invisible induction coil. Thus, the energy patterns are spiraling and circular. Thus, the choice of the most pleasant configuration is yours. The effect is relatively fixed. So, I've been thinking about this actually just now. One of the shapes that they said that does this kind of stuff is this silo. And if you think about a lighthouse, it's very similar to a silo. It's a big hollow cylinder, basically. And there's so many weird happenings in lighthouses with paranormal things. And I wonder if it's because it has this spiraling energy going through it that it gives it more energy to manifest. It's just a side thought. Is there any variation in the effect with respect to the material of construction, the thickness of the material? Is it simply the geometry of the shape, or is it related to some other factors? Good question, Don. The geometry, as you call it, or the relationships of these shapes in their configuration is the great consideration. It is well to avoid stainous material or that of lead or other baser metals. So stainous, they're saying, can be defined as made of tin. So any base metals are not good. But it could be wood, plastic, glass, or other materials may all be considered to be appropriate. If a pyramid shape were placed below the entity, how would this be done? Would this be placed beneath the bed? I'm not quite sure of the arrangement for energizing the entity by placing it below. Could you tell me how to do that? Your assumption is correct. If the shape is of appropriate size, it may be placed directly beneath the cushion of the head or the pallet upon which the body complex rests. So you can stick it under your pillow. We again caution that the third spiral of upward lining light, that which emits from the apex of this shape, is most deleterious, remember dangerous, to an entity in overdose and should not be used over long. Remember they said no more than 30 minutes at a time. What would be the height of one of these pyramids in centimeters for best functioning? It matters not. Only the proportion of the height of the pyramid from base to apex to the parameter of the base is at all important. What should that proportion be? It should be 1.6, which you may observe. Do you mean that the sum of all of the four base sides should be 1.6 of the height of the pyramid? Correct. So it says to read a few theories about the befuddling 1.6 ratio, see the resource series. I'm not going to go into all that right now. This one's going to be long enough as it is. By saying that the Queen's Chamber was the initiatory place, could you tell me what you meant by that? This is a large question. This question is a large one. We cannot describe initiation in its specific sense due to our distortion towards the belief or / understanding that the process which we offered so many of your years ago was not a balanced one. So they feel like they really made a mistake and they didn't give us the right information, and then we screwed it up and didn't use it correctly. However, you are aware of the concept of initiation and realize that it demands the centering of the being upon the seeking of the Creator. We have hoped to balance this understanding by enunciating the law of one, that is, that all things are one Creator. Thus, seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation and the work of an adept, which is the other word they use, initiate and adept, those are the two words, but in the experiential nexus of each moment. The initiation of the Queen's Chamber has to do with the abandoning of self to such desire to know the Creator in full that the purified in-streaming light is drawn in balanced fashion through all energy centers, meeting in indigo and opening the gate to intelligent infinity. Thus the entity experiences true life, or as your people call it, resurrection. Every moment can be used to connect to the one infinite Creator. Queen's Chamber was about abandoning the self, purifying the light that's streaming through you, through the pyramid shape, so that you can open yourself up to intelligent infinity, which is basically just source energy and the intelligent consciousness of source. I have sunglasses now. Was it like magic watching them turn from clear to dark? I had to stop the video to go get my kids off the bus. Now I'm back. Okay. As you mentioned, the pyramid was used for learning. Is this the same process, or is there a difference? There is a difference. And that's all Raw says. What is the difference? The difference is the presence of other selves manifesting in space-time and after some study in time-space for the purpose of teach learning. In the system created by us, schools were apart from the pyramid, the experiences being solitary. Solitary, not solidary, solitary. So the difference from the pyramid to the teaching that they were doing was that they were people were learning together, and the school wasn't part of the pyramid building itself. All right. Don says, I don't quite understand what you meant by that. Could you tell me more of what you're talking about? And the first time I read it, I said, me either. Okay. Ross said, this is a wide subject. Please restate your for specificity. Specificity? No. Specificity. Be more specific. Did you mean that teachers from your vibration or density were able to manifest in the Queen's Chamber to teach those initiates? Or did you mean something else? In our system, experiences in the Queen's Chamber position were solitary. In Atlantis and South America, teachers shared the pyramid experiences. Interesting. How did this learning process take place in the pyramid? How does teach learning and learn teaching ever take place? Oh, Roz flipping the question back on Don. Flippity flip. And that's all they say. That's all they said. How does anyone ever learn? Were they being facetious when they said that? Because they had just said that we weren't very good at learning how to do things. Okay, so then Don asks another question. The dangerous pyramid shape for use today would be a four-sided pyramid that was large enough to create the King's Chamber effect. Is that statement correct? The statement is correct with the additional understanding that the 70-degree apex angle is that characteristic of the powerful shape. So the 76-degree angle is what creates it gives the opportunity for the king's chamber. Then I am assuming that we should not use a pyramid of 76-degree angle apex under any circumstances, correct? This is at your discretion. This is at your discretion. And I have to remind Dawn here, free will, Dawn. Free will. Just because it's something dangerous doesn't mean that we can't do it, because we do dangerous stuff all the time. I will restate the question. I'm assuming then that it might be dangerous to use the 76 angle pyramid, and I will ask what angle less than 76 would be roughly the first angle that would not produce this dangerous effect. Your assumption is correct, and the lesser angle is the angle of 70 degrees. So less than 70-degree angle on the pyramid is going to not allow for a king's chamber, and it's going to be less dangerous to us people who don't know how to follow directions. Okay, I want to go on to more questioning on the pyramid, but I want to ask a question that so-and-so has here, but they don't actually put the name. They leave the name out. I'll throw it in at this point. Could you please expand on the concept of space, time, and time-space and how you get past this, the concept of these things, and at what density level do these concepts no longer affect the individual? This will be the last question, last full inquiry, or not query. This is the last full query. The instrument has some vital energy left. However, we become concerned with the increasing distortions toward the body complex toward pain with the wrist issue. Here's the answer to the question. The space-time and time-space concepts are those concepts describing as mathematically as possible the relationships of your illusion, that which is seen, to that which is unseen. These descriptive terms are clumsy, and they, however, suffice for this work. And the experiences of the mystical search for unity, these need never be considered, for they are but part of an illusionary system. Illusory system. The seeker needs the one. The one is to be sought, as we have said, by the balanced and self-accepting self, aware both of its apparent distortions and its total perfection. Okay. So what? What was Don's question even here? I was asking about space-time and time-space. How do we get past that concept? And is there a level of density where it doesn't apply anymore? And yeah, the relationship, time and space are relationships of our illusion of the third density. But they don't need to be considered because it is part of the illusion. Your search for unity need never be considered, for they are part of your illusory system. Okay, let's move on. I starred this part, so let's see, why did I star it? Resting in this balanced awareness, the entity then opens the self to the universe, which it is. The light energy of all things may then be attracted by this intense seeking. The light energy of all things may then be attracted by this intense seeking. Wherever the inner seeking meets the attracted cosmic prana, the realization of the one takes place. So I see why I starred that. The entity opens it up to itself to the universe, which we are the universe. The purpose of clearing each energy center is to allow that meeting place to occur at the indigo ray vibration, thus making contact with intelligent infinity and dissolving all illusions. Service to others is automatic at the released energy generated by this state of consciousness. So, clearing each chakra allows the meeting place to occur at the crown chakra, makes contact with intelligent infinity, which remember is the intelligent consciousness of the universe, of source. And thus all the illusions dissolve, and you can see what is really for real. And then it says service to others is automatic at the released energy generated by this state of consciousness. So if you end up doing that and connecting to the intelligent infinity, then you automatically do service to others. I would imagine you feel like you must do service to others. The space-time and time-space distinctions, the space-time and time-space distinctions, as you understand them, do not hold sway except in third density. So yes, it's just an illusion of our third density space. Space and time are just in third density. They don't exist after this. However, fourth, fifth, and so on, okay, hold on. However, fourth, fifth, and to some extent sixth, work within some system of polarized space-time and time-space. So nix what I just said. There is some kind of system for a polarized space-time and time-space, but it's not like it is here for us right now. The calculations necessary to move from one system to another through the dimensions are somewhat difficult. Therefore, we have the most difficulty sharing numerical concepts with you and take this opportunity to repeat our request that you monitor our numbers and query any that seem questionable. And then that's kind of the wrap up of that session. Dawn always asks at the end of every session, is there anything else we can do to improve contact? Ra says all is harmonious. And then this is what Ra says at the end of every session. He says, or they say, I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator, Adonai. Now, the end is usually something that's very similar to that. Sometimes the words are a little different. Adonai is a Hebrew word, which is the title of the reverence for God. So, what did we learn in session 57, video 1? Of the Raw Contact Teaching of the Law of One, Volume 2. Well, we learned that Carla got a jacked up wrist. Poor Carla. I don't know if it's because she has a jacked up wrist that she's under psychic attack, or if the jacked up wrist was a psychic attack. They don't really specify in this session. They might say more about it later. We also learned about crystal healing, how to use crystals for healing. We talked a lot about the pyramid and the different shapes that help for healing. The fact that you don't need the King's Chamber, and actually they don't recommend us using it because we don't know how to follow directions. Oh, and then there's a little more definition of time, space, space-time. So there's a lot of information in that first session. That was a long one, which means this video is going to end up being pretty long. If you made it all the way through, thanks. So, we're back at it. I'm back. It's back. I got a haircut today. It's a little shorter than I wanted it to be. It's all new here. It's all new things happening. So thanks for watching this video. If this is the first one that you come across, I highly recommend watching the recap and intro video that was posted just right before this one, just so you get a little flavor and taste of what we're even talking about and who we're even talking about. But also there is a whole entire collection of videos, 57 of them, from the first volume 1 book. Now we're on to volume 2. So yes, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Please comment on this. I really want these to be more of a discussion and people interacting with it and us learning the information together. So yes, please comment, share if that's appropriate, and subscribe if you haven't already. As I make this video, I am 8 away from having 200 subscribers on YouTube, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but considering how long it takes to get there, it is a lot to me. So hit the subscribe button. It'll make my day. Look for the next raw installation coming soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.